to whom the access is not an issue. And so the one that I put under contract today wasn't an adjoining owner, but it was somebody that could work out that access. And so being able to know who to call and how to work through those issues can be really important. And so the short answer to the question is yes, you can sell it. There are a lot of variables about what being landlocked will do. I sold a really nice place earlier this year, a 60-acre property that had a really pretty cabin on it, and you had to cross a couple of adjoining landowners to get in there. But the buyer was willing to take it, so it wasn't really an issue for him.
I was really lucky. I had a piece of property in Crenshaw County, and it was landlocked. But I was fortunate enough to have some landowners that were adjacent to the property,
right,
that were willing to let the new buyer have a road in down a fence line.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really nice of them. They basically created a second fence to keep their property fenced in,
right,
but basically created a road right down the fence line, which they actually own. But it allows, the people to go and come, and it was an easy peasy deal. I know sometimes it may not be that way with other folks, but it happens that sometimes you get lucky.
Yeah,
with that
well, and having great neighbors is good, so I think you did well on that. But thank you for that question, and if y'all have other questions, always send those to us at info@thelandshow.com. I love to get those. If you've missed any of the previous episodes, go to thelandshow.com. Check out the podcast section there. We've got over 400 episodes for you. You can subscribe to those anywhere that you get quality podcasts. Give us a review. If you like what you hear, give us a 5-star. We appreciate it. Y'all have heard me say it many times on the show. They're not making it.
Producer John Myers.
Well, as Meatloaf said so well so long ago, 2 out of 3 ain't bad. Producer John won't be with us today. He's got some other matters to attend to, but hey, Matt and I are here. Say good morning, Matt.
Good morning.
And we got a busy week to go over. Indycar continues to talk about the 2024 season while we still await the official schedule for them. NASCAR wants a fire suit. We'll tell you whose fire suit and why. Got drama for a team in the Craftsman Truck Series. We're going to try to unravel that one. Got an incomplete Formula E 2024 schedule. Gets a little bit clearer, though. Hey, is Formula One policing impeding during qualifying correctly? There's one driver that does not think so. Talk about that. Something that's been in place since 9/11 being talked about again, and NASCAR isn't the only major series that is concerned. Plus, has the FIA made a decision on expansion yet? We'll get to all that and so much more on this week's edition of CRN.
Stay right here. Championship Racing Network.
For those of you that are listening to us on the FM dial in East Central Alabama, 95.1 The Mountain, our flagship station, you guys just heard a commercial for Talladega, which is next weekend. For those of you that are checking us out on CRN Live on YouTube, and I have no idea what was on the app, I'll be real honest with you. Bit of a programming note, if we will. Next weekend, because it is a home game, so to speak, for Matt and I, who both of us have to be up in the tower bright and early.
Yeah, when I guess the good old saying as it goes, when the chickens hit the roost.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah, qualifying for the Cup Series begins next Saturday morning, 9:30 a.m. Eastern, or trucks, I'm sorry, 9:30 a.m. Eastern, 8:30 a.m. Central Time. It's 9:05 Eastern, 8:05 a.m. Central Time right now, so you can see where we have a problem.
just a little.
So we're just going to put it to you this way. Next weekend, we're not doing the show.
Yep, it's off week next week.
We apologize to you, but yeah, 2 weeks from now, we'll be back. Don't worry about it. We'll remind you about that before the show's over. Meantime, let's talk about what was actually a quite busy weekend last weekend. Of course, we talked about the Truck Series and we talked about the Xfinity Series last week on the show. That brings us to the Cup Series, continuing the weekend action. And for the 16 playoff drivers, the pressure was on. It was a cutoff race, meaning 4 drivers were going to be eliminated from playoff contention when all was said and done. One of the drivers who really was all but moving on to the next round cemented that by claiming the win as his 51st win for Denny Hamlin at Bristol. Not that the fans cared, as Hamlin became the driver that the fans loved to hate. And, well, I got to give him credit. He does seem to be embracing it to the point of tossing some verbal jams of his own. Said in his post-race interview, quote, "Everyone likes a winner, huh?" And then backed it up with, "I beat your favorite driver. All of them."
I gotta say this up front, and I saw this on social media, and I lost it. To whomever got through security with a cucumber, and had, I don't even know how to describe it. I'm just gonna let it. Another object covering it. Let's say that.
Yeah.
How you pulled that off is beyond me. Bravo for getting it through security. But why would you throw a cucumber on the track?
Yeah. Why are you throwing a cucumber at anybody? Why are you throwing a cucumber?
I don't know.
I mean, I get it. You don't like the driver. You don't like the driver. Okay, fine. Don't like the driver. Why are you throwing stuff at him? Ever since, I want to say it was Jeff Gordon, and was it the one where he bested Dale Earnhardt on the all-time wins list at Talladega? Was that what it was?
He bested Dale Earnhardt at Phoenix, but they threw a quick caution and ended the race under caution, and it was Jeff Gordon, Dale Earnhardt Jr., and Brian Vickers, the top 3.
Right.
I think it was 2004.
No, I'm thinking
2003.
But I'm thinking specifically of the situation at Talladega where we had so many people throwing stuff at Jeff Gordon on the track.
That's what I'm talking about. They threw everything on the track, and then where come the infamous PA read, "People do not throw objects on the track. You will be escorted out."
Exactly.
In a nutshell.
It's people like you that throw cucumbers on the track that I have to read something that seems like it would be common sense. Don't throw stuff on the track. Duh. Denny Hamlin beat Kyle Larson to the finish line. Christopher Bell was 3rd, Chris Buescher 4th, followed by Ty Gibbs, Michael McDowell, Chase Elliott, Brad Keselowski, William Byron, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. With all the results in, it left the fallout for the 4 drivers who did not make it onto the next round. That includes your defending Cup Series champion, Joey Logano. That, I think, was probably the biggest surprise of them all.
It was.
2014 Cup Series champion Kevin Harvick, this year's Daytona 500 winner Ricky Stenhouse Jr., and of course another Daytona 500 winner in Michael McDowell. Those are the 4 that are no longer eligible in the Cup Series to win a title this year. It also means that as we head into the round of the 12, that means we got now 4 new drivers that are under the cut line. Those drivers are, in seed order, Ross Chastain, Brad Keselowski, Ryan Blaney, and Bubba Wallace. Tyler Reddick is the one on the bubble. He's 3 points up on Chastain and Keselowski. He's only 14 up on Wallace in last place. So after this weekend, we could potentially see a lot of moving. Forget Talladega, which is next week, and that's the biggest wild card on this particular round of 3.
Yeah, with the edge of probably, I'm going to say 65-35 to the rubble.
Yeah, but, if you're good at a road course, you got a really good chance of
Sure.
doing well at the Roval, whereas we have seen some of the strangest stuff and the strangest people win at what used to be a plate track, what is now a super speedway with all of the different little things that kind of bunch the field up. So that's why I put Talladega as it. And, I'll admit I'm a little biased. Sunday evening, U.S. time, things got rolling in Singapore. It was already in the Sunday morning U.S. time, I should say. It was already in the evening when they were racing there. And if you remember last week's show, we detailed wasn't really a good qualifying session for the Red Bull twins, and it made us ask during the show if it might be the weekend that Red Bull would be staging that remarkable race to keep their winning streak alive, or could it be finally time for somebody to break them from sweeping the season? Well, spoiler alert, it was the latter. Red Bull just never really seemed to get things rolling the right way. And that was to the benefit of one Carlos Sainz.
I honestly think it was more of a, hey, let's just take the weekend off and just cruise,
They
guys.
really did. They really seemed to. Carlos Sainz put his Ferrari on the pole. He worked that into his second Formula One win of his career. He used a bit of a ploy as well late in the race on Lando Norris on the Mercedes twins. He kind of started to slow just a hair down, but he was taking the exact same line that Norris was racing, and it allowed the Mercedes duo of George Russell and Lewis Hamilton to close in. So while Norris had been on offense the whole time trying to catch up and see if he could pass Carlos Sainz, now all of a sudden he's got to defend to keep his second place finish. All of that, like we said, benefiting Carlos Sainz. He gets the win. Norris is second. George Russell held off his teammate, Sir Lewis Hamilton, for third. Hamilton fourth. Max Verstappen did get up to fifth, but couldn't do any better. Trailed by Pierre Gasly, Oscar Piastri, Sergio Perez, Liam Lawson, scoring his first points of his Formula One career. And then Kevin Magnussen, saying it was the hardest point he'd ever fought for in his career, but he claims 1 point for finishing 10th. Verstappen still holding that very obvious commanding lead, 374 to 223 over his teammate Sergio Perez. Lewis Hamilton's in there at 180, 170 for Fernando Alonso, 142 for Carlos Sainz, vaulting him up over his teammate Charles Leclerc, who falls to 6th with 123. George Russell's got 109, Lando Norris 97, 47 for Lance Stroll, rounding out your top 10. Pierre Gasly, he's got 45. Red Bull's lead in the Constructors' Cup standings, still stupid. 597 to 289 over Mercedes. We still got 7 races to go, and they've got a bigger spread over second place than the second place team has accrued points.
Oof.
Ferrari's got 265, 217 for Aston Martin, McLaren 139, 81 for Alpine, 21 for Williams. Haas F1 with an extra point has jumped up to 12. Alfa Romeo stuck at 10. AlphaTauri suddenly has 5. Is there a heartbeat at AlphaTauri? It's faint. It's very faint.
Very faint.
Very slow. But
Very.
maybe there's hope to save the patient. We'll get back to news from them in a bit. Then we got the Camping World Drag Racing Series. They got things rolling in race number 1 of their chase for the championship. Wasn't going to get finished, however, until Monday because rain caught them. When the finals finally did get rolling, it came down to Steve Torrence versus Doug Kalita in Top Fuel. Usually we would sit there and think Torrence, but man, I don't know what happened to that car. It had to be the car because it's not Steve Torrence. Steve Torrence was not sleeping at the wheel. Steve Torrence was in a coma at the light. His reaction time was 0.4, not 0.004, not 0.040, 0.4. 0.4 of a second. I'm no professional racer, but I've done some bracket racing in my time. I've never had a reaction time worse than a 0.11. 0.4. That tells me there's a problem with the car.
Yeah, it seemed like it didn't go when he dumped the clutch.
Yep. Doug Kalita was able to cruise on to the win, pulled a 3.662 ET, 336.99 miles per hour. That's his first win of 2023, but more importantly, and we'll get back to this in a bit, his 50th win of his career. Robert Hight faced off against Chad Green in the funny car finals. Hight with the quicker reaction time leading to the win, 3.854 ET, 330.39 miles per hour. That's his third win of the year, his 64th of his career to date. Matt Hartford and Kyle Koretsky faced off in the Pro Stock Car Finals. Koretsky pulling an almost perfect .003 reaction time. 0.4, .003. Okay. However, he could not hold off Hartford, whose own reaction time at a .012 was enough to allow him to power by. At the other end, after a 6.532 ET at 208.91 miles per hour, Hartford claims the win, his third of 2023 and eighth of his career. And in Pro Stock Motorcycle Finals, amazingly, for the second straight event, Gage Herrera wasn't there. Did feature Matt Smith versus Chip Ellis. Ellis, major troubles off the light. Smith gets the win, 6.807 ET, 198.5 miles per hour. Helps him claim his second win of the year, 38th win of his career so far.
He's pulling a Red Bull.
You think so?
He's taking a week off.
Well, he's taking 2 weeks off in this case. So you're saying there's a chance. Gage is over there. Yeah, right. Yeah. One more of note. We don't generally follow it, but because 3-time Cup Series champion and 1-time IndyCar title winner Tony Stewart decided to become full-time in Top Alcohol in the Lucas Oil Drag Racing Series, we've been kind of following his exploits there. He made it to the finals. He took on Madison Payne. Smoke a touch quicker off the light. He made it count at the other end. 5.213 ET, 271.19 miles per hour. Gets the win. His second national event of the year. His fourth win of the year overall. It allows him to retake the points lead in the division, 636 to 572 over Julian Natas. You got Sean Cowie in third, 549. Let me clarify something here, by the way. I say second national event win of the year, fourth win overall. Lucas Oil does not always shadow the Camping World Drag Racing Series around.
Yep.
When Lucas Oil is off by itself, it's not considered a national event win. Now, the Wally, the trophy he gets for winning, is every bit the same Wally that he gets for a national event win. But, yeah, second national event, fourth win of the year. Mm-hmm. And your points leader. And truthfully, I'm not going to put it past him to claim that title in that first year. I will not.
No?
Can't do it. Mm-mm. This weekend in racing begins later today as we air live. Texas Motor Speedway has the Xfinity Series running the Andes Frozen Custard 300.
Makes me want ice cream.
Kind of do too, although I've never had Andes. You?
Very good.
Yeah? Okay.
Very good.
Airs on USA and PRN Radio. Starts 3:30 p.m. Eastern, 2:30 p.m. Central Time. Sunday morning, U.S. time. Barely. Formula One gets things rolling in Japan. It's the Lenovo Japanese Grand Prix on the Suzuka course, a very highly thought of 18-turn, 3.4-mile-long road course in Japan. ESPN will have the action live here in the United States, starting at 1 a.m. Eastern Time, midnight Central Time. I don't think I'm going to be awake.
No.
I might have to watch a replay.
Yeah, and for those who thought Verstappen was actually human, yeah, he's back.
Yeah.
When you clear second place in qualifying by 0.6 of a second, yeah.
Some other highlights in qualifying. Let's go ahead and run that down real
you
quick.
had Mercedes 8-9. That's really it.
Yeah.
Everything else really business as usual. And McLaren 2-3.
That's a nice move for them.
Yeah.
Ferrari somewhere between them and Mercedes, I'm presuming.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And then on Sunday, NHRA Camping World Drag Racing Series gets back into action as they go to ZMAX Dragway for the Betway NHRA Carolina Nationals, the finals on Fox Sports 1. NFL rules, remember that here in the United States. Begins 2 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Central Time. Then finally, the Cup Series will take center stage for the Auto Trader Echo Park Automotive 400 at Texas Motor Speedway. That will air on USA and PRN Radio beginning at 3:30 p.m. Eastern, 2:30 p.m. Central Time. And you say, well, why are they on USA? It's not like NBC is running National Football League action in the middle of the afternoon, right? So I looked. Want to know what NBC is airing while the Cup Series is going on?
Oh, let's see. September the 24th, tomorrow.
I already know this.
Yeah.
It's MotoGP action from Europe.
But international circuit in New Delhi.
New Delhi, India. I'm sorry. You're right. Not Europe.
And then at
Asia.
3 o'clock, they go to motorcycle racing from St. Louis.
Yeah. We'll get back to the television ratings thing here in a bit. I'll return to it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The only series that's still in season that we covered that's off this weekend is the Craftsman Truck Series. If you're on CRN Live on YouTube, we've got a person who loves from overseas to put out quite the list of all the other racing that's going on around the world. And this weekend, it's quite the list. It's pretty impressive, I got to say.
While we're in break, I'll count the amount that she listed.
And we thank you, Athena, for doing that. We really do. We appreciate it. When we come back, we are going to get back into a situation. But I'll tell you what, I'm going to throw an audible here because I think the biggest news actually broke about an hour before we went on the air. And that means that we're actually going to begin with Formula One. Stick around. We'll tell you why coming up here in a bit. In the meantime, thank you for checking us out. We're just underway on CRN.
Right here for more on the Championship Racing Network.
As usual, is producer John, and there's a reason why he's not in the studio this week. You might notice I have a different background behind me. It's because I'm the one that's actually playing producer and host.
You talked about our before we get going. You talked about our European counterpart.
Yes,
that lists all the series.
Mm-hmm.
I counted in the break of the series that were listed that are racing in Europe alone. It listed 68.
Nice job.
68.
That's a lot of research right there, coming up with 68 different series.
That is a ton.
Congratulations. We begin here with Formula One, and the reason why is because this news, it's been kind of percolating for several weeks and really kind of seemed to begin to come to a boil this week with a whole lot of rumors about what the FIA was going to do when it came to ultimately deciding who they were going to give the green light to for potential expansion. but it was all rumor, so I wasn't going to deal with it. But about an hour and a half ago, as we are currently on 8:24 Central Time, U.S. time here on this Saturday morning. So about an hour and a half ago, not quite, the FIA ultimately, finally has made it known officially. Mm-hmm. What we did know was this: there are 4 teams interested in operating a new F1 operation. Those teams included Andretti Global, obviously in cooperation with the General Motors Cadillac division. There were 2 Formula 2 teams, High Tech, which I thought might have had a decent shot at it because they've been very successful in the Formula 1 feeder ladder, and then Rodan Carlin. Plus, there was an Asian upstart who labeled themselves as Lucky Sons, spelled Lkysunz, which I might have rejected them based upon that alone, but that's not the point. Matt, like I said, rumors have been flying for weeks. Things started to seemingly heat up over the week, and then this morning we learned something a little bit more concrete.
And like you said, as of this morning, it was released at 7 a.m. on the dot via motorsport.com out of Suzuka. The FIA has rejected 3 out of the 4 prospective new F1 teams, with 1 sole remaining survivor. That is Andretti Global.
And I can guarantee you there's twofold to this. First one is the fact that it is the Andretti name, and he has shown on more than one occasion the ability to come up with money. But the second thing is, and the FIA has been quite vocal about this, how in the world can they turn down GM? One of the world's biggest automakers. Right now, currently the 3rd largest automaker on the planet, behind only Toyota and Volkswagen. And think about all the sub-brands that are involved here. Mm-hmm. General Motors is still that big. FIA officials said, we're going to have a really hard time now. They said this back when it was first announced. It was Andretti Autosports, now Andretti Global, with Cadillac. The Cadillac Andretti entry. How are we going to really be able to lay our heads on our pillows at night when we said no to that size of a company that's willing to come in and back this operation?
You've got under the FIA banner. Well, let me say that disclaimer first. Toyota's involved.
Sure.
The World Endurance Championship.
They are.
Volkswagen's involved.
Yep. And they're about to get more involved because, remember, they have Audi and Porsche underneath their banner. Audi, we already know, is going to be the new partner with Sauber in 2026. And Porsche's still saying, we're willing to put an engine out there for Formula 1 2026.
You've got Honda, could be argued as a large one.
Sure, absolutely.
Ford coming in 26.
Yeah, they're going to have their name slapped on the Red Bull engines.
Yeah,
which are technically Honda design.
Mercedes and Ferrari, they're a staple.
They are now. And Renault. Which is under the Alpine banner for those of you that are questioning.
Why would I'm like to say it is, why would you turn down General Motors?
Yeah. You got a very difficult time doing that. And here's the other side of it. Remember, there are differences. There's no doubt about it. There are differences between the engine that Indycar uses under the Chevrolet banner and the engine that Formula One uses. I get it. But it's not technically all that difficult to take the base of the engine that is being used in Indycar and be able to put it to the specifications of an F1 car. It's not that difficult. So Cadillac really doesn't have that much to worry about. You've already got the basics of what you're looking for with your sister company in Chevrolet. All you got to do is have the engine conform to the specs that F1's looking for. You got an engine. Mm-hmm. It's not that difficult. There's not a whole lot of outlay, truth be told, or risk in this case for Cadillac to be able to go in and do this.
All right, so here's the thing. Here's the other, in my opinion. Sometimes my opinion don't matter. But in my opinion, though, does this, all right, contract approved. They're coming in 26.
There's still a hurdle, but we'll get to that in a second.
There's still that hurdle. Let's just say that hurdle does get jumped.
Okay.
Does this open the door for Andretti to circle back around and be full GM, even in IndyCar?
Very potentially.
I'd say it's a high chance.
Yeah.
Very high chance.
Yeah. And don't forget, they've been there before. Andretti's worked with Chevy before.
Because I'm not so sure Honda's going to say, hey, you're running GM over here. We're over here. Mm-mm.
Yeah. And we're going to get back to the Honda situation when it comes to engines anyway during IndyCar news. So, yeah, this does seem to be opening up a whole lot of area here. But now we got the bigger hurdle. And I say the bigger hurdle because the truth of the matter is when you look at what they're dealing with, all you needed to do to go to the FIA is present to them a workable plan that fit within what they're looking for. And I know this whole zero emission thing by 2030 and blah, 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 whatever. Andretti Global is far and away much more capable of doing that than any of the other three that were there, even the two teams that operate in the Formula One feeder series, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And Lucky Sons, they just had a whole lot of money. And I'll admit, they had a whole lot of money backing them. But I'm not really sure that their plan otherwise met any muster whatsoever. They might have been the first ones that they looked at it and go, yeah, they got a lot of money, but they really don't have the plan set out. See ya. They might have been the first ones eliminated, truth be told. But the bigger hurdle now is to get past the 10 teams that are currently in Formula One. The FIA makes the approval. Now they have to present that to Formula One. Formula One leadership then goes to the 10 teams. The 10 teams have to approve. Although I think in this case it just has to be a majority. It doesn't have to be all 10. But you'd have to get at least 6 that say, sure, come on in. What have we been talking about ever since the FIA started talking about a potential expansion? They've all been losing their ever-loving minds because they don't want their little piece of the pie cut in just one cut further. Despite the fact that I keep telling them that's a short-sighted way of looking at things.
Very.
Keep looking long-term here. What does Andretti bring? Andretti brings a U.S.-based team. Yes, we have Haas F1. With a U.S.-based sponsor backer that, let's face it, everybody in the world knows. Regardless of what you might think of Cadillac, you know the name Cadillac. Mm-hmm. No disrespect to MoneyGram. They're not exactly what anyone calls a worldwide brand, especially in comparison to Cadillac.
Yep.
They have money.
A lot.
Because even if they say, hey, we're going to need more than just the $200 million that it was agreed to in the Concord Agreement from a few years ago, Andretti can go to Cadillac and they can get the extra money to go up to as much as $600 million.
With ease.
And I'll be real honest with you, I'd actually be shocked if Michael Andretti couldn't get that money up himself without going to Cadillac.
Mm-hmm. I couldn't agree more.
But they're looking short term. They're going, you're going to cut into our little piece of the pie and our little piece of the revenue because now instead of cutting it 10 ways, we got to cut it 11. But you're getting an American-based team with an American-based, well-known brand promising to bring an American driver. And what's that going to do? It's only going to raise the profile of Formula One in what have I called the United States before? The biggest sports market on the planet. And what does that do? It adds to the bottom line.
Bingo.
It's an investment into your future. You have to spend money, you have to invest money to make money. This would be the wise investment for the 10 teams who are only looking short term, stupid them, and not looking long term and realizing that the benefits outweigh the short term loss.
Mm-hmm.
But they still have to overcome it. And here's the other side of it. And I don't think Formula One, if somehow Michael Andretti were able to convince, let's say all 10 teams, let's say it was a sweep, And Michael Andretti got a 10-0 approval. Here's the third, little bit lesser known hurdle. If I'm reading the rules correctly, Formula One leadership, Stefano Domenicali, yeah, I'm looking at you, from what I understand, could still veto it and say no. Now, do I think he would? No. If it were 5-5 and you need a deciding vote, I think Stefano Domenicali probably would say no. If it's 6-4, I think he would go with the majority.
Probably.
Which would be wise.
Yeah, because he's got that Ferrari tie-in background.
Yeah. So, I don't know. We'll see. There's still more to go here. This is not said and done that Andretti Global is in Formula One, but it is a good first step. We'll have to see where the rest of it goes.
Sure.
McLaren, meanwhile, in the wake of not getting Alex Palou, continues to restructure some things. They've announced the signing of 2023 rookie Oscar Piastri to a long-term deal. Piastri has come in and performed at or above the expectations of McLaren, and despite already having had a deal in place for next year, they worked out an extension that'll keep him with the team at least through 2026. Piastri scored championship points in 6 races so far, currently sits 11th in the driver's standings. I'd say, yeah, that's performing above what most people felt like he might do in his rookie year.
Yep.
Lando Norris has taken the time to complain about one thing that he feels Formula One officials don't take seriously enough: impeding. Let's take last weekend in Singapore, for example. 2023 champion in waiting Max Verstappen got summoned to the race stewards for impeding during qualifying. No less than 3 times. He got 2 reprimands, but didn't get a penalty. All right, wait. You ever been called into the principal's office?
Who hasn't?
If you got called into the principal's office 3 times in one day, would you expect to get out of there with a...
That's a problem.
With a hand slap, just a little slap on the wrist sort of thing? No.
That's a problem.
Yeah. Max Verstappen got called into the principal's office 3 times in qualifying and didn't get a penalty. It's usually a grid spot penalty, but still, did not get a penalty. Huh?
Is Michael Massey back?
Maybe. Norris noted that he and Verstappen are actually good friends both on and off the track, but he believed that for impeding Yuki Tsunoda during qualifying, Verstappen should have been penalized. Norris said, quote, "I know the team got a fine at the end of the day, but it should be down to the driver as well to look at his mirrors." Now, Verstappen defended himself. He said, "The only thing I can say about Singapore is that I explained what happened when I was sitting in the car and the information that was given to me, and then it was up to the stewards to make the call. The other 2 times was him waiting at the end of pit road, and for that he was reprimanded. Apparently he sat there on pit road while everyone else was saying, hey, it's time to go. But he sat there. So he got reprimanded. But he was cleared when initially accused of impeding Logan Sargent when the Williams driver apparently told race stewards he didn't think Max was at fault there. Okay, that one I get. But still, you got called out twice for sitting at the end of pit road when everybody, including officials on your radio, told you to go?
Here's how you solve the problem, F1. You go NASCAR style. You let the cars go out. Groups of 5. You got 5 minutes. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
You got 5 minutes. 5 cars on the track at a time. Then you eliminate this garbage impeding problem.
Yeah, you would.
You think you're supposed to go sit there and go, oh, or I'm going to get on the radio in my best European voice I can give. That's not right. Steve is blocking and impeding my lap. I'm on my hot lap. He's out there doing the same thing too.
Mm-hmm.
It's called back off the throttle.
Yep.
Give yourself some space, and it's what's called the gentleman's agreement.
Yep.
That's simple.
One would think. Apparently, it's not that simple. AlphaTauri has updated us on the latest on Daniel Ricciardo. We'll give you the latest on that. Plus, what is the future? Not just the short term, because remember, he's got that injury where he had to have surgery on his left hand. What's the future over there? Because, well, we still don't know what's going to happen in 2024. Well, I say we still don't know. We actually have found out. That's why we're going to update you when we come back right here on CRN.
We will be right back with more on the to the Championship Racing Network.
Welcome back in without producer John for this weekend. And again, if you missed at the, I don't know what top of the show, I guess we'll call it. Next weekend, we're not going to be here. Next weekend, we have PA Call. He's running the sound, or you're running the scoring tower. Running the sound. You're running the scoring tower. And, of course, I'm one of the PA announcers out there at Talladega. And because everything starts at 8:30, half an hour after the show would have actually begun, we're not really going to be able to do a show. And sometimes we've turned it over to a good friend of ours who is a host here at our flagship station, 95.1 The Mountain, as far as being able to do some interviews and things like that. But we're not going to worry about it. We're just going to say next weekend we're going to take the weekend off. There will not be a show next weekend, but we'll be back in 2 weeks. So
For those that have the app and listen through the app, you'll be able to hear those interviews live.
There you go.
Listening through that.
Yeah. And Grady does a fantastic job of doing those interviews, and we appreciate it. Let's see here. We were talking about AlphaTauri and updating on Daniel Ricciardo. Ricciardo's been out of the AlphaTauri car since injuring his left hand during a practice session accident just before the Dutch Grand Prix. Second practice session in this particular case. Initially ruled as possible for Singapore, but certainly out for the Dutch and Italian Grand Prix. It turned out he missed Singapore. He will miss this weekend in Japan as well because the team says there's no rush to get him back in the car. Surgery after the crash put a metal plate and screws into his left hand in order to keep the broken bone in place to allow it to heal. In the meantime, junior driver Liam Lawson has proved a workable fill-in. We told you he got points last weekend. He finished 9th. The question remains, though, when can Ricciardo come back? Well, that question fell upon chief race engineer for AlphaTauri, Jonathan Eddles. He said, quote, well, we all saw him in Singapore. He's still going through that recovery phase. I would say that we're still talking a while away. I wouldn't want to put a target on it. The recovery is going well. We've got some simulator work planned before he actually returns to the car. I think from our side and his side, there's no rush to get him back too early. The worst thing would be to come back before it's properly healed and then cause some other issues. Now, he's not in the car this weekend. Liam Lawson's back in the car this weekend. Did you happen to notice where he qualified?
Liam Lawson. Let me double check.
Okay. So Liam's in the car in Japan. Next weekend, kind of like we are here on the show, they're off. Then they're going to race in Qatar. So they're going to do their 2-race Asian swing, go more towards the Middle East. Then they'll take a week off, and that week off is spent traveling because then they come to North America for the race at COTA, Mexico City, and then going down to Brazil before returning to North America to go to Vegas. Can he return at some point in time during one of those events? Maybe. Again, with the way that they're talking about it and plates and screws and wanting to do simulator time, I'm thinking not Qatar. Maybe COTA. Maybe COTA.
That's what I'm thinking.
But I'm not holding my breath. COTA, Mexico City, they're back-to-back. I think it's back-to-back-to-back. COTA, Mexico City, Brazil, then a week off in Vegas.
Yes, because Vegas is the week before Thanksgiving.
Yeah, so I would say Daniel Ricciardo, at the very latest, will be in the car for the inaugural Vegas Grand Prix.
With the general admission $500 tickets.
Yeah. So where did Liam Lawson?
Liam Lawson is P11.
Not bad. Not bad.
Yuki Tsunoda made Q3, and he is in P10.
Okay.
I mean P9, excuse me.
Well, maybe the AlphaTauris do have a better heartbeat than what we thought initially. The team did announce yesterday that going into 2024, the team is going to feature Ricciardo as one of their 2 drivers. They will team him with Yuki Tsunoda. That means that Liam Lawson will find himself soon back into the reserve driver role again. But he's a kid who now all of a sudden has proven he can run very, very well. Mm-hmm. It's not going to be long before he's got a ride, whether it's at Red Bull or some other team.
If he keeps doing what he's doing, he'll
find another
okay.
ride.
He'll be okay.
And Logan Sargent, that means the heat got turned up a little bit more on you because the seat's very hot for you right now, Logan. Go out and prove yourself, man. Alex Palou, as we noted, not going to drive for McLaren. That we know it also means he's out as a team development driver candidate. So McLaren has turned to Ryo Hirakawa as a 2024 reserve driver. Hirakawa is a native of Japan. He's been successful in World Endurance Championship running for Toyota, helped them claim the 2022 Hypercar title. He also leads the driver's points this year. He's a little bit older than most reserve drivers, 29. but he does have experience in open wheel racing as well. He ran in Japan's Super GT and Super Formula Series, and as his schedule allows, before this year is out, he will work with the team in their simulators, get a chance to do a Formula One test ride, probably even get a practice session before the year is out. So, yeah, congratulations. They have found their replacement, and he's a bit older, strangely enough, than Alex Palou. We'll have to see how well that goes. Mm-hmm. That brings us back to where we were initially going to begin, and that is with the Cup Series. Saturday, and we're talking almost as soon as we got done with the show. Now, last week we were telling you that John had to go to his other job at the TV station because they were running sports, and he had to boogie on down the road. Matt and I were helping him pack up in a heartbeat because Matt and I were hitting the road as well because we were on our way to Bristol. We didn't really get comfortable in Matt's truck before this news came out. Mm-hmm. Trackhouse had when Trackhouse had set a time to do a press conference, and then Zane Smith announced that he was going to do a press conference at Bristol before the race Saturday night. And then Matt noticed that the Trackhouse press conference and the Zane Smith press conference were going to be happening at the exact same time. You can pretty much take one and one and add them together and come up with two. Uh-huh. Matt and I didn't get to the track in time to see it live, unfortunately, but in the order of how things happened, it all began with the rumor that we mentioned on the show last week. Live Fast Motorsports, we told you on this show, might be selling their charter. We don't usually deal with rumors, but this came from one of those sources that we do trust. So that's why we mentioned it and kind of waited to see what was going to happen. At around 1 p.m. Eastern, noon Central Time, word came down that Spire Motorsports had indeed bought the charter from Live Fast for a cool $40 million. So now you're sitting there thinking to yourself, wait a minute. Spire bought the charter? How does Trackhouse come into that?
$40 million.
Yeah.
Dollars.
We were talking about how expensive charters are becoming these days. $40 million.
That's essentially to a degree, a similarity, like what Andretti's paid for to get into F1.
Yeah.
He's buying his charter.
Mm-hmm.
The Cup Series is a fifth of that.
$40 million. But again, it's Spire Motorsports. How does this fit into the whole things? Well, here we go. This is where things started to fall like dominoes. Smith and Trackhouse then announced during the press conference at the same time, they would have press conferences at the same time. We could see that Smith was going to be moving up to Cup next year, but how it was going to happen was the bigger question. Spire has signed a technical alliance with Trackhouse. They will use the charter with Smith on loan to Spire to get into all the points races next year. Because the contract with Trackhouse has actually been designated as a, quote, multi-year driving agreement. And when Matt said that to me in the truck, it's a driver agreement. Oh, what the heck does that mean? And literally all Matt could do was go, I don't know, and shrug his shoulders. We were waiting on more details, but we've now figured out why. The contract with Trackhouse designated as a multi-year deal, multi-year driving agreement, sees Smith also be pulled out from under the Ford driver development program to go to Chevrolet. He'll join Ross Chastain, Daniel Suarez, Shane Van Gisbergen at Trackhouse officially in January. Time will tell how long before it is the Trackhouse works on full-time entries for either SVG or Smith. And, of course, they would need the charter or charters to do that. Of course, they could buy it from Spire.
The way I understood it, it all falls in that line. It's a he's loaned to Spire, but Trackhouse is essentially going to be setting up and doing all the prep work for the car.
Yeah. Trackhouse probably will also provide, they'll set the car up. They'll probably provide the pit crew.
Oh, yeah, they've got a ton of people.
The driver's on loan. Again, he's a Trackhouse driver. He's just being loaned to Spire to be able to drive in a chartered car.
Essentially what Roush done with Chris Buescher, the front row, back in 2013. And essentially what it was the same thing that MWR done with Brett Moffitt to Front Row when he drove for Front Row for that little bit, and then came back to MWR. So
hard to tell the players without a scorecard sometimes. We understand that.
true.
But still. So Zane Smith next year will be running full-time in Cup in a third Spire Motorsports car. They've got the 7. They've got the 77. Wonder what number they're going to pick. You had a thought on that last week.
I could see Smith getting in the 91 to signify that Trackhouse tie-in, and then the car that SVG runs next year, how many ever Cup races that he runs, I could see him flying under the banner of the 97, which he's ran in Australia and New Zealand.
Possible.
I could see that one. The 78 car, they're staying part-time, so we know that 78 number's not going anywhere.
Yeah, we'll get back to that.
So,
Okay.
foreshadowing.
Yep, we'll try. We'll find out, and of course, as soon as we know, you guys will know. Meantime, Trackhouse Racing is very happy to have a partner in Worldwide Express, and Worldwide Express is so happy that they've signed an extension to their deal for driver Ross Chastain and Daniel Suarez. Chastain in the playoffs for the second year in a row. So Worldwide Express says, you know what, we like what's going on over there. We'll extend for at least another year. They will be a primary sponsor for both Chastain and the 99 of Suarez at varying points throughout the course of the year next year. And in addition, the Dallas, Texas-based company have said that they are now Trackhouse's official logistics company as well. Worldwide Express, think FedEx, UPS, DHL. They do that kind of stuff. Pretty cool, though. Legacy MC continues to seek drivers to fill out the season of the 42, driven by Jonathan Nemechek next year. But for this weekend and next, Texas and Talladega specifically, Carson Hocevar, who has driven the car the past 3 weeks, will still be in that car. Heads to Texas, hoping to build on his 11th place finish at Bristol. You and I talked about Carson and kind of expectations for Bristol because, you know, Carson's a good driver, but he's not that experienced at this level. And we said, keep the car clean. Keep the fenders on the car.
He was, how do I word this? He was quietly good this past Saturday.
Yeah.
He was up in the top 5 for a little while.
Hardly anybody ever talked about him all night, but he was always there, and he was always able to avoid the melee.
He was, and I was quietly watching him. He was running where others weren't and was making ground.
Yeah.
In a hurry.
He really was. He was doing a very good job. This is a kid who's going to find himself in the Cup Series sooner rather than later.
He's going to be okay when he does get up there.
Yeah, I think so. Joe Gibbs Racing has announced that their first ever major sponsor in NASCAR, Interstate Batteries, continuing their partnership with the team by sponsoring 3 team entries this weekend alone in Texas. They're going to be the primary sponsor on the Trevor Bayne Xfinity Series ride. They're also going to be on the Cup Series rides of both Christopher Bell and Ty Gibbs. The Christopher Bell look on the 20 car is going to look much more like the traditional one that we have seen going all the way back to Dale Jarrett and Bobby Labonte, whereas the Ty Gibbs is going to have, well, let's just say kind of a Monster Energy kind of twist on it, where they're going to use a heck of a lot more black than the traditional Interstate green. Sorry, we don't have pictures. This track does, by the way, make the most sense for Interstate Batteries because Interstate Batteries is based out of Dallas, Texas, too.
I will say this about that 54 car.
Yeah,
I'm
go ahead.
not very fond of Ty Gibbs or JGR, but that reverse black Interstate car looks really, really
It is a pretty
good.
sharp-looking car. I agree with that. As you noted and teased just a moment ago, we found out about the sale of the charter from Live Fast to Spire Motorsports for 2024. Spire Trackhouse both talking about it last Saturday and Sunday, but we didn't really hear from Live Fast Motorsports until Wednesday. And that's when team co-owner Matt Tifft posted a short statement on social media. The statement read this, quote, Live Fast Motorsports is confirming they have sold their charter to Spire Motorsports. We will address the media in coming time for further statements. We thank all of our partners, fans, and LFM employees for their following and dedication. And here's the most important part. We plan to continue in a part-time schedule in 2024 with an open car. So, yeah, as you noted, the 78 will continue. Live Fast Motorsports will continue, we presume, with BJ McLeod. It's
not like Cup's going to cut their field 36 cars, so they're pretty safe.
Yeah. So the good news is for them, they've now got a $40 million infusion of cash.
Yeah. I think that's going to help them a little bit.
So here comes my question, and I honestly I can't remember this. How much, other than being a driver for LiveFest, how much is BJ McLeod involved in the ownership of LiveFest?
He's pretty.
He's kind of like co-owner.
He's co-owner. He's pretty involved.
Plus, he's got his own BJ McLeod Motorsports.
It's between him. It's between him, Tift, and Joe Falk.
Okay.
That charter specifically came from the old Circle Sport 33 car.
Right.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's where that charter was born from.
Plus, like I said, you got the BJ McLeod Motorsports entry, which it's kind of, they're not totally related. They're related through BJ McLeod. They're not co-owned.
Let's just say
Let's
this.
put it that way.
Anthony Alfredo's about to get a little quicker.
If he doesn't,
something's wrong.
Yeah. If he doesn't, they're not using their resources to the best of their ability.
Bingo.
I mean, that's $40 million right there. $40 million can help you do a lot in this sport.
I could take $40 million and take a basement-dwelling Xfinity team and put them on the roof in a hurry.
Use your newly found resources wisely, Live Fast. And maybe think about doing exactly what we just mentioned right there. Maybe combine the forces of the Xfinity and the Cup Series and see what you can do. It's a thought. We're idea people here on the show. Just saying. Wood Brothers Racing has not officially announced their 2024 plans, but they might have opened up the curtains on what may be happening next year. Crew Chief Jeremy Bullins got to talking to media at Texas when they arrived there just a couple of days ago, said the team is concentrating on improving their performance as the season draws to a close with their eyes on 2024. His official words, quote, "For our team headed to Texas, we're just trying to learn and look ahead to next year as we continue to work with Harrison and understand what he's looking for from our cars to find speed. Obviously, a year from now, we want to be in the playoffs. So we need to approach this week as an opportunity to learn as much as we can and have some good notes to work from." It does seem like they might have plans to keep Harrison Burton in that car, at least for one more year.
Yeah. At the end of the day, we know that Wood Brothers is tied in with Penske.
Yeah.
You got two Penske cars over here, two over here. There's a disconnect there somewhere.
Yep.
They need to be here.
Yeah, they need to be all in connection, and I don't think it's the driver necessarily. We've dinged him before. We've said letting go of Matt DiBenedetto for Harrison Burton was a mistake. But you know what? Don't go switching now. Stick with the kid. NASCAR safety crew.
I don't know. It was weird, but, at least the car didn't burn to the ground.
Yes, especially right there on pit road. A couple of weeks ago, we talked about Matt DiBenedetto making it very well known he was going to be leaving Rackley War Racing at the end of the season, thinking he was going to finish out the season. The team, doing their best Lee Corso impression, said, "Not so fast, my friend." They decided differently and released a statement of their own on Tuesday of this week and said he was out. Now, quote, Rackley War Racing has reached a decision to make a change for its number 25 Craftsman Truck Series entry for the remaining 3 events of the 2023 race season, including Talladega, Homestead, Miami, and Phoenix. The team, in its 3rd year as full-time, sponsored by Rackley Roofing Company Incorporated and WRR Shocks, will release further details of the transaction once they are finished. All of this apparently came as a pretty massive shock to Matt DiBenedetto, who probably went to Rackley War Racing and said, "Yeah, I think probably at the end of the year you and I should part ways." Apparently, DiBenedetto didn't find out about this until it found its way onto social media. He put a social media post up later that same day, Tuesday, that read, quote, "No words can express the disappointment I'm feeling right now." Now listen very carefully to this statement and see if you can tell what's missing. Quote, "No words can express the disappointment I'm feeling right now and also not being able to finish the season out. I really want to thank my fans for always being there for me. It means the world to me, and I'll always be there for you. Thank you to NASCAR and the Craftsman for such an awesome series that I love competing in with all my heart. Working on 2024, and we'll update you all soon." Something went real south in the relationship between Matt DiBenedetto and Rackley War Racing. I mean, south big time.
It still doesn't add up to me, because you got a team that's got a driver. It won you your first race.
Mm-hmm.
It put you in the playoffs this year.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, the first round didn't go exactly like you wanted it to, but you had a 3 and a 10.
Yep.
What would warrant not just letting him finish his last 3 races out, that you would probably, keyword, probably be one of the odds-on favorites going into next week?
Yeah, because the win that Matt DiBenedetto got for Rackley War Racing was at Talladega.
Granted, Munford, Alabama may think otherwise, but it's what the record books show.
Mm-hmm.
So, what's the deal, Curtis and Willie?
Yeah. And who are you going to get that's better? What driver out there right now with 3 races left in your season, what driver out there is better than Matt DiBenedetto?
You can't pull it. Hey, here's one thing. You can't pull an Xfinity driver or a Cup driver to come do it, because guess what? You're in the playoffs. Cup drivers and Xfinity drivers cannot drive lower series in respective playoff seasons.
So what are you going to do? You going to pull an ARCA series driver up and think that they're going to do better than Matt?
Who you going to pull from ARCA?
I'm just throwing it out there.
I mean, you got Jack Woods. He's already locked in the 51. You can eliminate that. Your choices are kind of limited here.
Yeah. Good luck. NASCAR news, plenty of NASCAR news here. Let's do the scheduling thing last, because you got something on there. So let's talk about this. There is a bill right now before the United States Senate that would loosen restrictions on airspace restrictions, specifically over sports facilities. Representatives from the National Football League, Major League Baseball, and NASCAR are all lobbying Congress to keep the restrictions in place. These are restrictions that were put in place right after 9/11. Currently, the restrictions place a temporary flight moratorium, if you will, over any stadium or racetrack in the United States that holds 30,000 or more people, starting 1 hour before said sporting event and continuing for 1 hour after. The moratorium does not allow for any flying craft to be below 3,000 feet or within 3 nautical miles from the center of the sporting venue in question, unless they have specific permission, for example, helicopters for the networks. Okay? Missouri Republican Representative Sam Graves, chairman of the U.S. House Committee on Transportation and Infrastructure, a pilot himself, suggested loosening these restrictions, said, quote, "It's simply wrong to suggest that existing flight restrictions have any connection to preventing terrorism. The suggestion is to allow companies, big and small, to be able to petition the FAA for a waiver as needed. Okay, petition for the waiver. Keep the restrictions in place. Petition for the waiver, and if it's granted, great. If it's not, you do a slight detour. I mean, Talladega is directly on the flight path between Atlanta and Birmingham. And how many flights go between Atlanta and Birmingham every single day?
All right, I'm gonna give you another example here. And this is not even motorsports related. Protective Stadium.
Sure.
Dead Indy flight approach line to Birmingham.
Yep. Where the UAB Blazers and the Birmingham Stallions play, and where Garth Brooks did one whale of a concert last year.
Legion Field in the same path.
Yep.
So you mean to tell me, and Birmingham's only got one runway. It's long enough for the commercial jets. If they're coming in one way, they've got to go out the other way.
Mm-hmm.
They can't come in the same way and go out this other way. You can't do reverse ops for 3 hours.
No.
Stop. Okay, we got to let these go. Okay, stop. We got to let these come in. No, that ain't going to happen. FAA and air travel don't work that way.
Yep.
So, and there's been a few times that I've flown out of Atlanta and flown over a little place called Mercedes-Benz Stadium, and it be occupied.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Come on, people. The NFL, Major League Baseball, NASCAR, and the NCAA have all co-signed a letter sent to Congress expressing concern about the safety of the fans going to the races and the games, saying that loosening restrictions could put millions of people at risk, only serves to, quote, complicate the airspace over stadiums, compromises public safety and security, and courts potential disaster. We'll have to see how all of this goes. We got a question regarding Texas Motor Speedway. Once this hosted 2 races a year, now they're down to 1, but making it the All-Star race. Now hosting their 1 race, they made it a playoff race this year. It all seemed to be done kind of to placate the track, which has seen, well, let's face it, a drop in popularity recently. But things might be changing again for Texas. The NASCAR schedule for 2024, as we will note here again in just a moment, we don't have a final 2024 schedule. But with IndyCar actually considering not going to Texas Motor Speedway next year because of their contract with NBC, which, remember, has the Olympics, therefore could cause a break in the schedule. It could mean IndyCar might not go to Texas Motor Speedway just for next year. It would break the series' second longest annual streak for a track right behind Indianapolis. But NASCAR might be able to move in, put a spring race back in at Texas. Expect NASCAR, they state, to return to Circuit of the Americas next year. And if it follows what happened earlier this year, that could happen late March. With a week between that and then the first weekend in April and the IndyCar racing at Texas, NASCAR might look at that and might prompt IndyCar to try and figure out how to do another NASCAR-IndyCar doubleheader weekend. Because, again, it's looking more and more like it's not going to happen on the Indy Road Course next year, because that particular schedule would fall right where the Olympics is, and that's where IndyCar is going to take a break. I think one of the reasons why we haven't heard anything from NASCAR yet might be that they're also looking at their partnership with NBC, which would be in effect at that point in time, and whether or not they can take a break.
I mean, with effectively 7 races to go in the season, and you still don't have a schedule yet?
Yeah.
Something's going off the wall goofy here.
And little things seem to continue to keep trickling out when it comes to this. Okay, so we just talked about Texas. How about this? And this is sad news for Chi-Town Mark, who is a constant watcher on our CRN Live on YouTube feed. And we thank you for that, Mark. The sad news is that for the first time since 2009, no NASCAR series will race at Road America in Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin.
Absolutely stupid.
Macking of stupid, but okay. According to a report from the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, however, they do believe this might be a short-term pause as opposed to a permanent break. On the opposite side of it, we know that the season will begin with the cash grab known as the Busch Light Clash that will run for the 3rd straight season at the LA Coliseum, or as I like to call it, the Mausoleum.
Absolutely stupid again.
In addition, they're going to have the NASCAR Mexico Series venture north and become an exhibition race on Sunday, February the 4th, before they begin all of the Busch Light Clash action.
Let's waste another $10 million to pay. Let's pave a football stadium.
Exactly. Kind of like going back to the reason why we kind of celebrated when they said that NASCAR won't be running Bristol dirt next year. because of the amount of money that NASCAR spends to put all the dirt on the track, groove it in there, and get it ready to race. And then once the racing is done, have to remove all that dirt. That costs a pretty serious amount of money to do.
You got it.
How much money do you think it will take to take what is effectively a football field and make it a racetrack?
They got to stay in that L.A. market, Steve. They can't afford to lose the California market.
Then figure out how to make Auto Club work.
You've got the San Francisco market with Sonoma.
Go there.
That's California. I don't understand. Back on what you said. Taking all the money, building the football stadium up at a racetrack and a football stadium.
And then you got to tear it all back down.
Then you got to tear it all back down when all you got to do is just strip a little bit of dirt off of Bristol. Now, I'm going to put this disclaimer out there. Bristol dirt was a novelty.
Sure.
That novelty has ran its course.
Agreed.
Okay. My opinion, LA Coliseum's ran its course too.
Agreed.
It's very much ran its course.
Yeah.
Because you're essentially taking you're taking these haulers coast to coast.
Oh, yeah. Because remember,
That's a lot of expense.
they're going to start their season with the Busch Light Clash in L.A. Then we got to haul all the way back over to the East Coast to run at Daytona.
That's the only two givens. What's the West Coast swing going to look like now?
Yeah. Now, if they continue on with that West Coast swing after the fact, L.A. to Daytona, back out to Southern California or Vegas or Phoenix or whatever to do the West Coast swing again. It's a lot of mileage, ladies and gentlemen. Lot of mileage for a series that is talking about trying to figure out ways to cut costs.
Peterbilt Peterbilt Freightliner and Mack Trucks is about to get a whole lot of more money because there's about to be some new rigs bought.
Have to be.
Yeah.
But that being said, we know, again, we don't know what the 2024 schedule is going to look like just yet. We're hearing rumors. We're hearing little trickles. We're hearing little bits of information here and there.
I wish they would hurry up.
You heard something a little bit more.
Yeah, from a account that is on what I still call Twitter. That is ran by spotters that actually know what's going on within the series.
Mm-hmm.
And let's just use the term more times than none. More times than none. What they say comes out to be right.
Yeah. They do have their fingers on the pulse of things going on.
Quote, rumors of multiple, let me say that word again, multiple road course and plate tracks in the playoffs next year.
Now, we can do some surmising here.
Mm-hmm.
There are 3 plate, since we don't use restrictor plates anymore, tracks that NASCAR is currently running. They are Daytona, Talladega, and Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
Daytona, in the position of being the final race of the regular season, seems to be in a pretty good spot. Could they change it? Yes. NASCAR's shown they're willing to do major changes. Is that an advisable change? I don't think so. We already know Talladega's in the playoffs. Atlanta's got 2 races, one in the spring and now one in the dead of summer. And Atlanta in June/July, we'll just use hot. Hot.
As you fill in the blank.
Yes. There's a reason why Atlanta has a nickname of Hotlanta in June and July. Atlanta moving into the playoffs? Cooler weather might not be the worst idea. Road courses. That's the bigger question to me. Where are you going to go when you've already told Road America you ain't going there next year? Where are you going?
Well,
Other than the Roval.
something is telling me. They're starting to line this up to where Daytona is going to book in the season.
It does kind of seem that way. And I'm not so certain I'm a Big fan of that.
I'm going to say I'm not totally against it. I'm not totally against it.
I'm not going to sit here and tell you my feet are in the cement locked down as being against it, but I'm not sure I'm the biggest fan of it.
Here's why I say this before we take our break. If you can take a super speedway race and end the regular season with that uncertainty, why could a super speedway race not end a playoff round or even end the season?
Ending a playoff round, I'm a little bit more on than ending the regular season. And the only reason I say that, the way that the playoffs are set up, obviously anybody who follows NASCAR knows this. The final four who make it into that championship run, the person who finishes the best out of the four drivers, he or she, is the title winner. At a Daytona, at a Talladega, a little bit less so, but at an Atlanta, because these cars get bunched up, something that happens that is totally not of that driver, that championship eligible driver's doing, causes them to have what would be a really good car, but they're playing strategy, and they get taken out of the race from something not of their own doing. That's less likely to happen at a Phoenix or a Texas or a Charlotte or a Bristol or a Martinsville or whatever.
Yeah, true.
That's the only reason why I say I'm kind of against it. Is it the worst thing in the world? No, absolutely not.
Oh, it would be fantastic for Talladega.
Sure it
God, I
would.
would love that.
I guess we'll find out one of these years when they finally figure out what the schedule is going to look like and put it out to the public. We'll let you know when it happens. We got one more segment to go. How much of this can we actually fit in? Because we got plenty to go. Well, we'll see next right here on CRN. Since their season ended, the SRX series has been fairly quiet. They only noted that they will be back on ESPN with Thursday Night Thunder in 2024. 6-race schedule, noted the dates of the races, but we still don't know the tracks they're going to, at least not yet, other than going to Vermont. That got washed out, moving that planned race in the 2023 season to Stafford. But I think I found Matt's next car in iRacing. SRX has come to terms with iRacing on a deal that's going to bring the series to the popular virtual racing game. A statement from the series notes that iRacing employees are now working on getting a proper scan of the cars to be used that are used in the series, and iRacing seems happy to offer them, quote, soon, unquote. Tony Gardner, who's iRacing's president, said we're excited to welcome SRX into iRacing in a future release. SRX car has been a big request from our customers, and many of their past and present tracks are already on the service, which will allow for quick and seamless integration. We're looking forward to a release sometime next year. Can't wait for our iRacers to get their hands on it. Don Hawk, the SRX CEO, said, quote, we've heard from the fans on social media. We're thrilled that the race fans will have an opportunity to get behind the wheel of an SRX car in iRacing. We think that the SRX car schedule and race format will produce incredible action in the virtual world, as in the real one, and the series should prove to be a popular addition in 2024, but we don't have an actual release date yet. For those of you on CRN Live on YouTube, Matt's just got the Cat Ate the Canary grin going.
One thing that iRacing does give the ability to do is run a car on a track that you would think would never see the light of day of 4 tires touching, i.e. Indycar at Talladega. Russell. So we could see an SRX car on a super speedway. Let's go.
There you go. As we noted during the NHRA recap at the beginning of the show, and if you missed the beginning of the show, where were you? Doug Kalita claimed the win in Top Fuel last weekend in Reading, Pennsylvania, put himself in some pretty elite company. He claimed his 50th career win and marks only the 23rd driver to reach 50 career event wins, and only 16 of them has spent a significant period of time in what we now call the Camping World Drag Racing Series. John Force, of course, leads all those drivers at the top level, the Camping World Drag Racing Series, 155 event wins. Second place, Pro Stock driver Greg Anderson, 101. They're both still active. Warren Johnson retired with 97. Tony Schumacher's got 86. Bob Glidden retired with 85. Jed Coughlin's got 84. Ron Capps at 76 and counting. Pat Austin retired with 75. That included time in Top Fuel, but other series, not in what we would now, again, call the Camping World Drag Racing Series. Antron Brown continues at 74 and counting. Kenny Bernstein retired with 69. Robert Height rolling on with 64 going into this weekend. Larry Dixon ended his career with 62 Top Fuel wins. Steve Torrance is currently in at 58 and moving up. Joe Amato ended his career with 57. Andrew Hines stopped at 56. 53 and done for Jason Line. And now you got Doug Kalita in the club. And it doesn't look like he's stopping anytime too soon. Go for it, man.
Yep.
Aaron Stanfield claimed his 11th win in the FlexJet Factory Stock Showdown, claiming the event win by besting number 1 qualifier Dell Holbrook. Holbrook, in his Ford Mustang Cobra Jet, was beaten by Stanfield's Copo Camaro. Stanfield powered that car to a 7.676 ET, 165.46 miles per hour. He got the win, leads the division by 165 points over second place Stephen Bell. 3 races left in the season for the FlexJet Factory Stock Showdown, so no, it is not wrapped up just yet.
Not even close.
And again, I say this before, I'll say it again. Why are we talking about this? Because this is technically a car that you could go down and get from your local Ford, Dodge, or Chevrolet dealership if you've got $100,000 to $150,000.
I know where one's sitting not very far from here.
I don't have the money. They take a post-dated check. Final numbers from television last weekend. We've talked about this. United States' biggest sports market on the planet. The king of all sports in the United States is the NFL. The queen, if you will, or second place is college football. Now, obviously, things change from time to time, and there are things that will affect all of this. And that brings us to what happened last weekend. When it comes to motorsports here in the United States, not necessarily around the world, but in the United States, the Cup Series rules. And then it's a battle between Formula One and IndyCar for second and third. And then generally it's between Xfinity and the NHRA for fifth. And then the Truck Series and everybody else, SRX Series and stuff. But last weekend, the Cup Series was not the biggest motorsport on the block. Helped out by being put alongside the king of motorsports, the NFL, the NHRA pulled in 2.1 million people for the first event in the chase for the championship. And that 2.1 million people at its height bested the top time from the Cup Series race at Bristol Saturday evening, 1.6 million. It did air on NBC. It was up against several college football games, not the least of which was the, sorry Dion, but overhyped Colorado Buffaloes taking on the Colorado State Rams. That helped siphon off more viewers. College football, again, second biggest in ratings in televised sports. We're going to go there before we go auto racing. That helped as well. But, hey, the NHRA still was the top motorsports viewed event of last weekend. Formula One Singapore followed at about 1.3 million, Xfinity at about 1 million for a Friday night race. And for a Thursday night race, the Craftsman Truck Series on Fox Sports 1 actually did pretty good, even competing against a Thursday night NFL game. They still pulled in right around 900,000 people, and that's right about their average. To IndyCar, where for the first time since Andretti Autosport fielded 5 cars in the 2020 season, we're going to see a 5-car operation in IndyCar. But it ain't Andretti. It'll be Chip Ganassi racing, which I find a little weird because Ganassi has at times talked about having a hard time finding sponsorship for drivers. Shouldn't have problems for 1 and 2. Alex Palou and Scott Dixon, they finished 1 and 2 in the points. They're the champion, defending champion, and has been a champion 2 out of the last 3 years. And then there's Scott Dixon, who is a 6-time champion. Plus, you got the reigning Rookie of the Year, Marcus Armstrong. Then you got Linus Lundqvist, who seemed to prove himself pretty good for the fill-in races that he did this year, and he will compete for Rookie of the Year in 2024 against his new teammate, a kid by the name of Kiffin Simpson. Who?
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Simpson, if you haven't heard of him, we can understand it. He's a Cayman Island native who's all of 18 years old. He's the son of David Simpson. Simpson runs Ridgeline Lubricants. They are a partner of Chip Ganassi Racing. Oh, now we kind of see where this happened.
Check.
Joins them during the 2022 season for the sponsorship. Simpson will be by far the youngest driver on the IndyCar grid. His dad and his company have allowed Simpson to get more seat time than most 18-year-olds, including being part of the winning LMP2 team at the 12 Hours of Sebring earlier this year. He's got open wheel experience. He won the 2021 Formula Regional Americas title by winning 7 of the season's 18 races. He joined Indy Next in 2022, where he finished 9th in points, dropping to 10th in the season just ended. No wins, 2 podium finishes, but apparently it's good enough to get him an IndyCar ride. He's currently racing in the European Le Mans Series for Algarve Pro Racing, competing in the LMP2 division there, but he will soon be running for Chip Ganassi.
Good for him.
I hate to say this. I think he's in over his head.
A little bit.
Ed Carpenter Racing looking for a driver to replace Connor Daly in the number 20. Ryan Hunter-Reay finished the season out for the team in the car, but he is once again out of the series, so Carpenter's trying out different drivers to see who might be a better fit for the team. He's set to test 2 drivers. This past week, Indy Next champion from 2019, Oliver Askew, and 2023 Indy Next champ Christian Rasmussen spent some time in a Chevrolet simulator in North Carolina, and soon they'll all be coming to our backyard here at CRN to test at Barbara Motorsports Park. Askew raced for Arrow McLaren in 2020, has a spot and has spot sub for other drivers since, one of them being at Ed Carpenter Racing. Ed Carpenter himself in 2021 at Road America. He finished 12th, when he filled in for a injured Renus VK. As for Rasmussen, he's a Denmark native, said to be a shining star waiting to rise. He claimed the title for the Indy Next series this year for HMD Motorsports with 5 wins and 7 podiums this past season. Walked away from all the other competition. He could actually hire both drivers. One could run full-time in the 20 car. The other could split time with Carpenter in the 33 car because, again, as we've noted, Carpenter only runs the oval track races, and he needs a driver to fill in for him when they go to road and street courses. So it's possible both could come up, but one of them is almost guaranteed to. Yeah. If I were to guess, just based on experience alone, I would say Askew would get the full-time ride, but that's a guess. I've been wrong before.
I have to.
In a move that might help Honda in their battle with Chevrolet in IndyCar and maybe some other series the brands compete in, Honda Performance Development has announced they're going to combine forces with Honda Racing Corporation. Who knew there was such a thing? Beginning at the start of the 2024 racing season, the U.S. division of HRC will now also be much more hands-on with all of Honda's racing activities worldwide. Honda Racing Corporation is actually the elder statesman. They were formed in 1982 and began in motorcycle racing, but also took on the auto racing arm in 2022, most notably the Formula One program, which does kind of explain the 2021 announcement that they were going to be leaving the series and then reversing that course in 2022, said, yeah, we'll continue on. Word is Aston Martin might team with them and put a Honda motor in their car in 2026. Anyway, Honda Performance Development got established in 1993. That was to put the company into IndyCar competition and run some other U.S.-based series like IMSA, Baja Off-Road, Touring Cars, and Formula Regional America. Since 1993, they've won 200 races in IndyCar alone, 180 of them with at least one other company providing engines. Reed Chevrolet, but Lotus has been in there, for example, and others. They also have 15 manufacturers' titles, and 9 of those came with one or more competitors. All right. We'll see whether this does them any good. I mean, they're combining forces and trying to do the whole worldwide thing. Still daring you, Honda, to come to NASCAR. Just saying. I'm daring you. What you got? Oh, you're just looking at the time? Yeah, I'm looking at it too. I do want to get to this, though. A couple of things here. Let's finish out IndyCar, and then we can wrap up the show, and we might kick off with Formula E next week because, well, you know, we're not going to get to them this week, but I don't want to ignore them at the same time.
Right.
And I'll say this up front. I'm in full agreement with both Bobby Rahal and Mario Andretti on this bit. The owner of Rahal, Letterman, Lanigan Racing and the racing legend, Mario Andretti, have both come out and said they have no problem with IndyCar venturing outside North America for a race or two. But they want it to mean something. In other words, they want it to count towards the IndyCar Series title.
I can't say I disagree.
For the record, the series has not run outside of North America since 2013, but they are said to be considering it as soon as next year. Maybe going to Argentina, talking about doing some sort of an exhibition race, which would help out Juncos Hollinger Racing and their driver, Agustin Canapino, who are both from Argentina. But they're talking about making it a postseason October-November exhibition event. No, make it a points event. Go down there and do it. Do it right. Make it part of the season. Mm-hmm. You guys want to start to get out and start expanding out and competing on a worldwide basis, make it count for something.
Yep. Agreed.
Don Cusick has only made the Indy 500 twice. That happened in 2021 and 2022. He owns his own Cusick Motorsports, and as it turns out, he's a resident in the neighborhood attached to the Thermal Club. And because of that, Cusick is considering entering an all-star event, the all-star race that we talked about last week. That'll be exclusive to that track next March. The winner of the event walks away with a cool $1 million. Second place will get $700,000, $500,000 for third, $200,000 for fourth, $100,000 for fifth. Sixth place through the rest of the field all get $23,000. Okay. Cusick said he's working with IndyCar to get his car into the event, and if approved, he will put Stephen Wilson into the car, marking his return to IndyCar after suffering a pretty serious back injury during practice in Indy 500 for the Indy 500 last May. Cusick said he is, though, more than ready to get back in that car.
Big drop off from 100,000 to 23.
Yeah. Woo. And where'd you come up with 23? Why not 25?
Yeah. Good question.
It's kind of like the United States Postal Service.
Let's not go there.
Here, we have a nice 60-cent stamp, but we're going to raise the price of our stamp to 62 or 63. Why don't you just raise it a nickel? Make it 65. Let's make it a nice round number.
Yeah.
Duh.
Yeah.
There's plenty more to get to. We'll get to it not next week. Sorry. That programming note. 2 weeks from now. Next weekend is Talladega, and it does interfere because of Matt's duties, my duties at Talladega Superspeedway. We will not have a show next weekend. But in 2 weeks from now, we shall return, we promise, to at least CRN Live on YouTube, pending college football. Y'all have a great week. Enjoy the racing this week and next. We'll talk to you in 2 weeks right here on the Championship Racing Network.
This has been a presentation of the Championship Racing Network.
WDNG, 1450 AM,
And W236 CQ 95.1 FM, Anniston.
95.1 The Mountain.
Anniston Oxford's classic station.
Here is the latest weather from Alabama's meteorologist James Spann, brought to you by Bucks Island Marine of Southside, your authorized Crest pontoon dealer with full boat repair. Don't get a boat until you get a Bucks quote.
A good supply of sunshine today. The high for this afternoon around 86 degrees. 14